There is a city that no map could find for over 1,000 years. 30,000 people woke up every morning inside a mountain, not beside it, not beneath it, inside it. They carved temples, markets, tombs, and water pipes directly into rose-red sandstone cliffs, using tools that should not have been sophisticated enough to do it. No concrete, no steel, no cranes, just human hands, iron chisels, and a civilization operating at a level that still baffles archaeologists today. This is Petra, and what happened here 2,100 years ago will permanently change how you think about ancient intelligence. Before we go inside the rock, I need you to do 3 things right now. Hit subscribe, because this channel goes where textbooks refuse to go. Drop a like if you believe history is the greatest mystery mankind has ever buried, and leave a comment telling me exactly where in the world you are watching this from, your country, your city. I read every single one, and it never stops surprising me how far this reaches. Now, walk with me through a canyon that narrows to barely 2 meters wide into a city that time forgot and desert sands tried to erase forever. You cannot see Petra until Petra decides to show itself. The only entrance is a slot canyon called the Sick, a fracture in the earth so narrow that 2 people walking side by side will brush shoulders against stone. It stretches for 1.2 kilometers, twisting like a serpent, blocking sunlight, dropping temperatures, muffling every sound from the outside world. Ancient travelers entering this passage had no way of knowing what waited at the other end. The walls climb 80 meters above your head, sheer, smooth, streaked with layers of amber, burgundy, and cream, deposited across 60 million years of geological pressure. The Nabateans, the Arab merchant civilization that built Petra, did not choose this location accidentally. That canyon was a security system, an architectural weapon disguised as geology. Any invading army attempting to enter marched single file, blind, compressed, and exposed. Control the Sick, and you controlled everything breathing on the other side. And at the far end of that darkness, the Treasury appears, and nothing prepares you for it. The moment the Sick releases you, your eyes hit something that stops your feet completely. Rising 43 meters from the canyon floor, nearly the height of a 15-story building, the Treasury face is carved with a precision that feels mechanically impossible for hands working in 100 BC. Corinthian columns, sculpted eagles, goddess figures frozen mid-gesture inside recessed chambers cut directly into the cliff. Local Bedouin tribes called it Al-Khazne, the Treasury, convinced for centuries that a pharaoh's fortune was sealed inside that urn, carved at the very top. Rifles were fired at it. The urn is pockmarked with bullet scars that still exist today. No gold was ever found. Because the treasury was never a treasury, archaeologists now believe it functioned as a royal tomb, specifically built to house a Nabatean king after death. The interior holds 3 bare chambers, no decoration, no furniture, no inscription identifying who rests there. Whoever commissioned this facade spent enormous resources creating a monument that announced power without explaining it. That silence was deliberate, and in the ancient world, unexplained power was the most intimidating kind. Most civilizations built cities near rivers. The Nabateans built theirs inside a desert that received less than 100 millimeters of rain per year. They were not born architects. They started as nomadic traders, moving incense, spices, and silk across routes connecting Arabia, Egypt, Greece, and Rome simultaneously. Somewhere between the camel routes and the canyon walls, they made a decision that separated them from every other desert culture of their era. They stopped moving and started carving. By 100 BC, Petra had become the most strategically positioned trading hub in the ancient world, sitting directly at the crossroads of 4 major commercial routes. Every merchant carrying frankincense from Yemen to Rome passed through Petra and paid for the privilege. That taxation system generated wealth dense enough to fund monuments cut from solid rock. But the Nabateans carried something more valuable than gold across those desert routes: information. They absorbed engineering techniques from every civilization they traded with: Greek column design, Egyptian water management, Roman road construction, and synthesized all of it into something entirely their own. Petra was not borrowed architecture. It was the physical result of a culture that treated knowledge as the most profitable commodity on any caravan route. 30,000 people living inside a desert canyon required one thing above everything else: water that never stopped flowing. The Nabateans solved this problem with an engineering network so sophisticated that modern hydrologists still study it as a functional model. They carved channels directly into the sick walls, narrow stone pipes running the entire 1.2-kilometer length of the canyon entrance, feeding the city from springs located kilometers away. Ceramic pipes were fitted inside those carved channels, sealed with hydraulic lime mortar that prevented seepage through porous sandstone. Settling tanks were positioned at calculated intervals, trapping sediment before water reached cisterns carved into bedrock beneath the city floor. During flash floods, which hit Wadi Musa with lethal force and zero warning, dam systems redirected surging water away from the canyon and into storage reservoirs simultaneously. They were not simply collecting water, they were managing an entire hydrological cycle inside a rock formation. Archaeologists have identified over 200 cisterns cut into the surrounding mountains, enough combined capacity to sustain the population through years of complete drought. This was not improvised survival engineering. Every channel, every tank, every pipe junction reflects deliberate mathematical calculation about flow rate, gravity, and seasonal precipitation patterns. A civilization that could engineer water from nothing inside a desert understood something fundamental about long-term survival that most empires surrounding them never grasped. Petra was never just a collection of carved facades. It was a fully functioning urban machine, operating at a scale that rivaled Alexandria and Antioch at their peaks. The city contained a colonnaded street stretching 600 meters through the valley floor, flanked by shops, administrative buildings, and public fountains fed directly by the water network above. A Roman-style theater cut into the hillside seated 8,500 spectators, not visitors, residents, people who lived inside the rock and needed entertainment after the trading day closed. Temples dedicated to Nabatean deities rose beside Greek-influenced civic structures, beside Egyptian-styled tomb facades, all existing within walking distance of each other without architectural contradiction. The marketplace processed goods arriving from 3 continents simultaneously: frankincense from southern Arabia, silk from China, grain from Egypt, copper from Cyprus. Caravans entered through the sick, paid customs taxes at designated checkpoints, unloaded merchandise into warehouses carved directly into cliff bases, and departed within days. Petra charged every transaction, every overnight stay, every water allocation, every animal feed ration consumed inside city limits. This was not a settlement built around faith or agriculture. It was engineered around commerce with the precision of a modern logistics operation. The Nabatean elite lived in freestanding palace structures on the valley floor, while workers and craftsmen occupied the hundreds of cave dwellings carved into surrounding cliffs at varying elevations. 30,000 people moved through this system daily, buying, selling, worshipping, eating, sleeping, inside a canyon that the outside world could not find without a guide who already knew the way in. The Nabateans did not worship the way their neighbors did, and that difference carved itself permanently into every cliff face surrounding Petra. Their principal deity was Dushara, a god with no human face, no sculpted body, no mythological backstory borrowed from Greek or Egyptian tradition. Dushara was represented exclusively as a rectangular block of uncut stone, raw, unadorned, deliberately featureless. In an ancient world saturated with anthropomorphic gods, Zeus throwing lightning, Isis spreading wings, Mars gripping a spear, the Nabateans worshipped a rock that looked like nothing at all. That theological choice was radical. It suggested a culture comfortable with abstraction at a time when every surrounding civilization needed their gods to wear a recognizable face. Alongside Dushara stood Al-Uzza, goddess of water, fertility, and Venus, whose worship connected directly to the survival logic of a desert people dependent on rain. High places of worship were carved into the tallest peaks surrounding Petra, flat altars cut from exposed mountaintops, where priests performed rituals visible to the entire city below. The largest of these, the high place of sacrifice, required climbing 800 steps cut directly into the mountain face, a physical act of devotion built into the architecture itself. blood channels carved beside the altar drained offerings away from the sacred surface with the same engineering precision applied to the city's water network. For the Nabateans, religion and infrastructure shared the same design language, because in a desert canyon, keeping water flowing and keeping God satisfied were equally matters of survival. Every civilization that accumulated enough wealth eventually attracted the attention of Rome, and Petra was no exception. Roman generals had been watching the Nabatean trade network for decades, calculating exactly how much tax revenue was bypassing Roman coffers every time a spice caravan crossed the Arabian desert. In 63 BC, the Roman general Pompey swept through the region, absorbing kingdoms like a fire-consuming dry brush. But Petra stopped him cold. The sick made conventional military assault mathematically suicidal. No formation, no siege equipment. No cavalry charge could function inside a canyon 2 meters wide and 80 meters tall. Pompey accepted tribute payment instead and withdrew, the first time in his campaign that a city's geography defeated his legions without a single engagement. For another 130 years, Petra maintained its independence through a combination of geographic advantage, diplomatic precision, and calculated tribute payments that kept Roman appetite temporarily satisfied. But in 106 AD, Emperor Trajan ended the negotiation permanently, annexing the entire Nabatean kingdom without military resistance and renaming it Arabia Petraea. The absorption was remarkably bloodless. No siege, no massacre, no dramatic last stand at the Treasury facade. The Nabatean king Rabel II had died without a successor, capable of sustaining the diplomatic framework that kept Rome at a manageable distance. Rome walked through the sick unopposed, and the city that had operated as the ancient world's most sophisticated independent trading state became simply another province on an expanding imperial map. Rome did not destroy Petra. Something far quieter did, and that makes the collapse considerably more disturbing to study. Under Roman administration, Petra initially prospered. New construction layered Roman architectural grammar over Nabatean foundations, a colonnaded forum here, a monumental gateway there. But Rome was simultaneously engineering Petra's irrelevance without fully understanding the consequence of what it was doing. Roman engineers constructed a new road network connecting Mediterranean ports directly to Arabian trade origins, bypassing the canyon city entirely and redirecting commercial traffic onto flatter, faster, more controllable routes. The caravans that had sustained 30,000 lives for 4 centuries simply stopped arriving. Without trade volume, the taxation system collapsed. Without taxation revenue, infrastructure maintenance became impossible. Without maintained infrastructure, the water network began failing at its joints. Then, in 363 AD, a catastrophic earthquake fractured the city's hydraulic system beyond practical repair, collapsing facades, rupturing cisterns, and severing the ceramic pipe network running through the sick walls. Population hemorrhaged steadily outward over the following decades, not fleeing disaster, but quietly relocating toward functioning economies elsewhere in the region. By the 7th century, Petra held perhaps a few hundred inhabitants occupying a city engineered for thousands, caretakers wandering through monuments built for a civilization that had already departed. The desert sand moved in with the patience that only geology possesses, filling streets, burying colonnades, swallowing doorways, until the canyon returned to silence so complete that the outside world forgot the city had ever existed at all. For 1,000 years, Petra existed only inside Bedouin memory, a location too sacred to share with strangers. In 1812, a Swiss explorer named Johann Ludwig Burckhardt disguised himself as a Muslim scholar and talked his way through the sick, using a fabricated religious vow. When the Treasury appeared before him, he recorded everything in disciplined silence, then walked away before anyone noticed his hands were shaking. That campfire journal entry reintroduced a lost civilization to a world that had spent centuries convinced it was mythology. Today, archaeologists confirm that 85% of Petra remains completely unexcavated beneath compacted desert sediment. Ground-penetrating radar has already detected buried structures larger than anything currently visible above ground. A ceremonial platform the size of a city block sits untouched, never referenced in any recovered ancient text. Meanwhile, rising temperatures and flash floods are actively dissolving carved details that survive 2,000 years intact. Every year without excavation is a permanent withdrawal from a historical account nobody fully understands yet. Petra was built by people who refused to accept that a desert canyon was an obstacle, and the sand is still keeping most of their secrets.